A couple more announcements. As I said yesterday, we have run out of Kips and Valentines. Jiggy Johnson did not account to the number of children there were, so the Kips and Valentines for the Kids Day is all gone. But thank you anyway, Jiggy Johnson. As you can see behind me, due to inclement weather, the tunnel of goats has been brought inside. So it's just over there for all your horned fun needs. Anyway, on with the show. Sarah has a secret identity. By day, she is a mild-mannered window box taunter from Skegness. But by night, she fights crime in the guise of Omar Sharif woman. A woman with all the powers of Omar Sharif. She is here today to talk about a mattress she owns that once belonged to one of the Bee Gees.
Okay. Orbs. Before I start, is there anyone here who's photographed an orb or knows what they are? Okay. Oh, lots of them. Okay, well I can't actually tell you what they are. I can try and tell you what they're not. And I can tell you about my own experience of them. Unlike any other subject that's discussed at these weekends, this one is led entirely by photographic evidence. But there doesn't seem to be any particular definition of what they are. All the pictures you're going to see today, apart from a very few, which I did get online, were either taken by myself, by Maya Glennie here, or by my partner Neil Jeffers, who's over there. And I've asked Neil, during this talk, to actually take a few photographs, so there might be the odd flash going on. W.B. Yeats said that nature is full of magic, just waiting for our senses to develop in order to see it. And I think that's a very appropriate statement for the subject of orbs. Although really it's the development of technology, and in particular digital photography, that's enabled our senses to see them. My background is in photography, and I've been working in that field and studied it for a long time, and that sort of ranges from experience in photographic printing, working as a photographer and a photographer's assistant, but most of all my experience of actually looking at photographs and editing them was when I was running a photo library, which I did for 13 years. And I was editing the work of hundreds of different photographers, literally hundreds and thousands of photographs, so I got pretty familiar with the effects and mistakes and all manner of photographic glitches. And unlike a lot of other photographers, when digital came along, I actually stuck with film. I find it is my preferred medium. So it wasn't until relatively recently, about 4 years ago maybe, that I actually bought a compact digital camera. And it was really just for practical reasons, you know, for taking pictures for friends and family, etc. And I never bothered to learn how to use Photoshop. So all the images you're going to see have not been messed about with in that way. They are just either cropped, or the contrast and brightness has been increased or decreased in order to see the orbs better. I was initially very sceptical about the subject of orbs. And that attitude changed a few years ago when I went for a walk along St Glen in Cornwall. I don't know if you know, that's near Tintagel. It's a very beautiful valley. And I was accompanied by a friend of mine who's a professional photographer. And we walked along the valley and walked up the carved stone steps that take you up to the cafe. And at the entrance to the cafe there was a board of photographs taken by visitors to the glen. And all of the photographs showed different visitors, and all the photographs had orbs in. And obviously the board had been out in the daylight for quite a long time. The pictures were quite faded and not great quality, but me and Huntley looked at each other, so that was my photographer friend, and we just went, yeah, right. What load of rubbish. So after that we went and had a cup of tea. And then we walked up to the waterfall, which is this waterfall here. And I started taking some photographs, and I put the flash on the compact digital camera and I set it to fill in. And this is what I took. And then I took another one. And another one. This picture's been cropped. And then I took a picture of my friend Huntley and noted those. And when I looked at these pictures, I realised that there was something going on. And it wasn't something that I could personally explain away by dust, flare, moisture drops, etc. These were things that were not behaving in that manner. My partner Neil here is an artist, and he has an interest in symbols, and he uses them as inspiration for his paintings, and there are some of his paintings next door. So one of the places that we used to like to visit was churches. And we used to photograph things like the carvings, the roof bosses, and the bench ends for the symbols. And we started to notice that we would often find orbs in these places. All these churches are in this area, but this one, unfortunately, we can't remember which church it is. So if anyone recognises it, perhaps you can tell me. This one's Holsworthy Church. I know it's a bit tricky to see because it's quite light in here. But there's lots of orbs here, here, here. This is Kilcampton Church. I was quite amazed by these ones. This one especially was so bright and almost solid. And this one here is really moving quite fast. And this is in Welcome Church. Again, it's sort of zooming in here from the corner. And that's another one in the church, the first one. We think this might be Abbots Bickington Church. Once you become aware of orbs in photographs, you start noticing them, that they're cropping up in other images that you're taking. Oh, it's a bit hard to see on here. There's this I sort of boosted the contrast and then we boosted it again so you would be able to see it, so that's not very clear, but that's just a photograph taken during some building work that Neil was doing at a farm. And there are a lot of orbs on there, but I know you can't see them, unfortunately. David says though, if you can't see any of the pictures, you want to have a proper look at them, you can actually look at them on the laptop after the talk. So. And I was doing something very mundane. I was just cleaning up this cabinet. I wanted to try and sell it on the website. And this is in my shed, and the orbs. There is an orb there, and there's some other orbs around the cabinet. And we started to notice them turning up in things like estate agents' details when you're looking through. And pictures of family gatherings and weddings are an absolute favourite. Again, I know it's a bit light, but the orbs in this picture are quite small. This is a wedding reception we went to recently. There's an orb there. There's one there. They are quite small in this picture, but they are there. Oops. And this is a friend of Neil's getting ready for his wedding with his best man. And there's one there. And there's some on the wall there as well. I know it's tricky to see. Then we moved house. and we had a housewarming party. And they really put in appearance. This one is the first time I captured this phenomenon here, which is, I know just to an observer that looks like smoke. And admittedly there is a bonfire going on. But the bonfire was actually very, very hot, and it wasn't a smoky bonfire, it was a hot bonfire. So this is something that Maya here calls a light wave, and you're going to be seeing more of that later. My interpretation of that would be to imagine lots of orbs gathering together like a flock of starlings, and when they have a murmuration. And this also shows the diverse shapes and sizes that orbs can take, and it's not just necessarily the spherical or round shape. You get this sort of drop, upward drop. And there's sort of streaks going on. I know, unfortunately you can't see that well. And after discovering their presence here, I started taking a lot more pictures in our garden. And I noticed that there was one orb that became recognisable by this sort of feature that they have. That's another one which has the same feature. And again, that's the same one. There's also something quite strange happening in this bush here, where you can see it's like there's lots of orbs trying to come out of the bush. I then took some pictures one night, and I thought that I'm going to have to share these with people because they were just so extraordinary. This one shows, I've seen other pictures of this phenomenon, and people have called it a light rod, and wonder whether it's some kind of way that the orbs kind of travel together in a straight line, because it doesn't seem to be one here, there seems to be several going to one point, or are they coming away from a point? And then you would get quite sort of massive gatherings. And then I took this picture, and I realised that this orb here had actually positioned itself behind our washing line. And when you look at this, when I looked at it, I realised that this was something that I could show to people and say that this is pretty good proof that they aren't something that are inside the camera. That's a close-up of the same shot. Obviously it's been raining, but you could see the raindrops on the washing line, and the orb has positioned itself immediately behind it. So you can actually see the orb and through the raindrops. So it really does sort of exclude all those dust, flare, etc. So what are the theories? I know we've probably seen them on TV programmes such as Most Haunted, where they're regarded as an indicator of a ghostly presence, but they can turn up anywhere. They don't just have to turn up in somewhere which has got a history of ghosts. And I think just to sort of put them in a box labelled paranormal phenomenon would be a mistake, really. The reason that we can photograph them, and anyone can photograph them, is because they are using the energy of the light of the flash. They then fluoresce it back to you in the infrared spectrum, which is just outside the range of human vision. So there are apparently there are some people who can actually see them with the naked eye. So they're not reflecting the light, they're actually using it to fluoresce themselves. So they are actually a light source. So this is kind of similar to many creatures in nature which use bioluminescence. In fact, I often think when I was looking at some of the pictures I've taken of orbs, how much they remind me of jellyfish. And when I was looking into the subject of bioluminescence, and I read about research that shows that every single mammal cell contains a protein that glows under infrared light. So you could say that we all have this potential to glow. And so if they contain some kind of chemical or protein that's doing this, so that we can photograph them, I think there's no doubt that they exist. So are they kind of another level of nature that surrounds us, a sort of aerial plankton soup? And we know from Chilean photography that uses a small electrical charge that can show that there's the energy field that surrounds living things. I mean, this is a leaf that's actually been taken off the plant and it still has this energy. And we have this energy too, so that's, you know, off a hand, obviously. So could it be some kind of natural but invisible plasma, a form of disembodied energy, natural energy? I mean, to many that have encountered orbs, they represent something deeply important on a spiritual level. And some people see them as a lost relative or friend that communicates to them and comes back through the images that they can capture on their cameras. And some people could become aware of them after a significant event, such as maybe a loss in the family, or a death of a loved one. And this timing can obviously reinforce that belief. And some people just seem to be able to attract them. This is a friend of mine. I mean, they can be interpreted as energy from the earth, or nature spirits, and fairies even, because you often get these other forms that appear on their own and sometimes with the orbs. I know that's quite hard to see. This is a little something that I've photographed, and I know it looks like a butterfly or a moth or an insect, and you could explain it away by that, but I have really seriously examined this picture, and it has a glow around it, which again, it shows that it's a light source as opposed to something which is having the light reflected off it. And that's the same shape again, which I think if it was an insect you wouldn't get that. And these are sort of, again, this strange shapes that you get sometimes. And even during the day, I've had this ball of light, which is not really an orb, but it's something. And then sometimes you can just photograph an orb and it'll have little lights, little pinpricks of lights that aren't quite attached to it. So what I've learnt about them is that they can be attached to a person or an individual or a place. It's obvious from blurred images that they can move extremely fast, and that's speeds of between 200 and 500 miles an hour have been suggested, and that's based on the duration of a photographic flash and the distance that they can travel. And a photographic flash about a thousandth of a second. And you can have crowds of them 1 minute, and then take another picture, and then they're all gone. They can appear brighter when there's moisture in the air, And this could be due to the negative ions increasing the orb's ability to fluoresce, and it would account for the image that I took at our party where we had the hot air rising from the bonfire and the rain falling, which it was, all adding to electrify the atmosphere, and plus we were all having a good time. And 2012 was quite a good year for orb photography due to the constant rain. Although you must take care not to misidentify raindrops as orbs, but I think it's pretty hard to do that because of the features and the anatomy that they have. They have an outer ring which is glowing. I mean, there'll be some pictures later of much closer up orbs where you can see this clearer. And they also have this sort of central feature, not always, but a lot of the time they have that. And I call that the eye because it sort of can move around and actually appears like it's looking at you. So are they something new, or have they always surrounded us? I mean, as I said, there are a few people who can see them with the naked eye, but could it be something that as a race we could all do, but we've lost? Now we're no longer relying on our instincts as hunter-gatherers. Could our ancestors have seen them all the time? And are they the root of folklore or fairy tales? Stories about fairies and mysterious lights. In fact, it was Neil who came up with the fact that could they be the inspiration behind the mysterious cup and ring marks? This is something that's baffled archaeologists for ages, centuries even, decades. And I certainly see a familiarity there. And this image I did find online, and it's taken in East Ayrshire in Scotland. And on the same website, taken by the same photographer, I found this picture. So, I'd like to hand you over to Maya now. And we met about a month ago when she walked into our house during Art Trek Open Studios, and she'd found out about my interest in orbs through another artist. And when I saw the photograph she'd taken on her own website, I was quite blown away. So I'm delighted that she's agreed to come on today and talk about them and share them with you. And after that, I'm going to go through some photographic tips. If you want to take some photographs yourself of orbs, give you some little hints and suggestions on how to do that. Okay? Thank you, Maya.
This is fun. It's working. Right, well, I don't have any. I'm not a photographer as such. I'm not a professional photographer anyway. I've just taken pictures for fun. I use little happy snappy cameras, and just while people sort of have a little, it's quite alright, and I've been taking pictures of anomalies for about 4 years. I'm just going to show you the first picture of my set, and I'm just wondering, has anybody here seen orbs with their own eyes? You see, loads of people do. I'm not crazy, am I? So this is my first picture. Can't see it at all, can you? It's a shame because it's a nice picture, but that's my grandson. And where's the little thingy? There we are. See that? That is a blue squid. Is it possible to close that door, do you think? Or is that going to suffocate everybody?
Suffocate.
Do you think? Oh, right, don't worry then. Okay. So he is, it appears to me that he is looking at something. Obviously these pictures are all so pale, it's hard, you're not going to get the best effect. But if you look at it on the laptop, perhaps a bit later on, you can see that he is actually looking at something that we couldn't see, but it certainly appeared on the photo. So when you see them, anybody, you, what do you see? Where do you see them, and how do they manifest? Are you just sort of?
I've seen it at various locations when I've done recce's for
Yeah.
buildings, in cellars and places like that. But a lot of the time I've attributed them maybe to light and dust and things like that. But I have seen photographs where they've been unusual shapes.
But you're seeing them with your naked eye?
Yeah.
Yeah, and do they zoom? Do they flash about?
Yeah, I have seen them like dots.
Yeah,
And they just sort of disappear.
yeah, absolutely. That was my first experience of seeing orbs. I saw them myself. I didn't know what an orb was. But I'd be out walking in nature and I'd see little flashes of purple light, usually purple indigo light, flashing the side of my vision. And when you sort of discount the fact you're going mental or you're something wrong with your eyes, you start to wonder what it is. And gradually over time, I sort of started to make contact with other people who were taking pictures of orbs and seeing orbs, and then I started to take pictures of them. This one, if you look at it on the laptop, also you can see is behind the washing line. they like to use washing lines, I think. More pictures taken at night. Put this one up just because you can see sometimes the orbs have looks like holes in them. And some are really, really white, bright lights like angels. I don't know what they are. I have no idea what they are. What I do know is how I feel when I look at them. I've taken well over 10,000 pictures of orbs. I'm totally obsessed. And I just love it when they appear. Next up, they appear in daylight. This is up the lane behind my house. I always take my camera with me and I'm always taking pictures. So in the end, you're going to get stuff. Anybody would. Back at night again. Rather like this one because it looks like a little alien eye in the middle. There it is. Quite like that. Haven't had those very often. Haven't had any actually since these came up. But you can get all sorts of different shapes and what have you. And more orbs in daylight. That's a very pretty blue colour, but you know, I'll get they come in all colours in actual fact. That one was taken at dawn, so there's no, in the field behind my house, there's no question of it being dust or rain. It was completely dry, the air wasn't moving, and it was just a single orb. Beautiful, just appeared. Then you can get them massing. It's like they come in clouds of orbs. As you can see the concentric rings quite well on these pictures, I think. There they are again. This is a place where I take a lot of my pictures because it's just around the corner. It's a very quiet little lane, and you know, there's often it feels great. And I go up there at dusk and all sorts come out. Once again, that's just to show that you can get a whole load all coming together. Can't see anything on that one because but that was up in the sky. Yeah, this was a nice picture, but you can't really see it. This once again was summer. Not raining, it was completely dry, and I was just sitting in the field. It just felt great. I took a picture, loads of orbs, and there's some other little things going on there as well. Over there, that's not the village light, and that's not a village light. They're like little squiggly things going up. Okay, now these are what I'm really into now, even more than orbs. These are light waves. First time I took a picture of a light wave, I was so scared. I didn't know what it was. It was just this massive sort of cloud where I could clearly see with my own eyes that there was nothing in the road. I looked down on my viewfinder and there it was. After I took the first one, I didn't get another one for about 6 months. Whether that was something to do with me, because I was scared, or whether they decided to give me a bit of a break, who knows. But can't see anything. I think that one. This one I quite like, because after a while they seem to form themselves into the shapes of animals or beings of some kind, and this seems to be getting more and more frequent in my experience. This was one night in my garden, and I just kept taking pictures, and they looked like dragons to me. And they got so intense, and they seemed to get so close, I got quite spooked by it, so I stopped taking pictures and went back inside. But this one here, this was the last of the set that I took in the garden, and he's over there on the sort of the right-hand side. I don't know whether you can see it. You really need it nice and dark to see these pictures at their best. Another light wave, I can't really see it. But they are, it sounds crazy, but I can feel them. So I can just feel the presence of something, and it feels good. It always feels loving to me. It's like an invitation. Come and take my picture. So I do, and usually I get something. And sometimes they're incredibly bright, like this one. It's so white and so bright, it's sort of, you can't believe it. Something that's changing, can't see that picture at all. Something that's changing for me is that, no, train of thought's gone. Okay, so back to this one. This was taken in the snow. It was snowing very lightly, but there was absolutely no mist or fog or anything of that nature. It was completely clear to the hills on the other side. I'm not sure what you can see at the back, but from down here I can't see that there is a blue squiggle, very similar to the one that the little baby was looking at, similar sort of thing, a similar colour. And when I took this picture, it's like, it behaves like this, it's like a squiggle. You were talking about the speed of these, pay attention, Sarah, I told you. The speed of orbs, for something to move in the flash, because I always use a flash, for it to have moved at that speed, you know, yeah, who knows, but maybe it's just, you can't sort of quantify it in terms of the understands. I've no idea. They're covered in colours. It's a nice sort of rainbow orb in the snow again. You sort of get a feel for it after a while. You know, you can tell if it's rain or it's snow or it's dust or something. You get a bit of a feel of it. This was. It wasn't actually snowing at this point, so there's masses of orbs there and light waves. You know, the sort of the mists that were back, and all these different sort of qualities that they seem to have. Some of them seem very sort of fluffy, and some of them seem quite sort of sharp, and like they're from a different source or a different energy. Here's another one, but it doesn't see, you know, it doesn't matter what camera you use, as long as you don't use a really posh one. We're going to do this demonstration in a minute, aren't we? To show that the more money you spend on your camera, the less likely you are to get anything. This one I like because it looks like a little being. I don't know whether you can see him there. There he is. Who knows? And then this one, it appears as though it's very solid, and as if it was over my head. Looks a bit like an arm or something. But like the cloud game, you can interpret these things and make anything out of them, really. But I do think that little man from the previous picture is rather a good one. Moving on. This was another one taken well, it was evening time, but it was totally dry. There was no question of it being moisture or dust. They just appeared, and in the next shot they were gone. More light waves. This one, does actually show that the light waves themselves can be composed of hundreds of little orbs, all sort of massing together. So whether they, you know, you can speculate. I don't know. What's the wonderful thing about this is nobody knows what it is. I like that. You know, nobody insists that they know. Well, some people do actually, but anyway. So perhaps the light waves come out of an orb, or orbs down the sort of rods and tubes and stuff, or maybe they're disappearing into the orbs. I don't know. More light waves. Most of my pictures I take in my garden. I just go out there in the evening and get my camera and just take pictures, and my neighbours think I'm crazy. That's fine. That just sort of gives you an idea of what a bug looks like in amongst the orbs. That is a bug. More light waves, and I think I've got one coming up in a minute that I actually took. They do seem to show themselves a bit better when it's cooler, but I've got one coming up in a minute which I took last Wednesday, so it's not actually that cool then. Coming to these, they are amazing, and when you get them come up on your camera, it's just phenomenal. And even after 4 years of taking pictures, I'm still blown away when I get them. That's the picture that I took last Wednesday. I was just walking in the woods. It's in the afternoon. I don't know whether you can see too clearly, but this whole section here is a light wave. And in the next picture, which I took a second later, it had gone, vanished completely. And I think that one is one of my favourites. That was taken in my garden. And, you know, it kind of looks like a being. I don't know. But it is one of my favourite pictures. I think that's it, Sarah. I think I'm done. Yeah, this one's yours. Okay. Thanks very much for listening. It was great to talk about them. Thank you.
I just want to give you some photographic tips. I mean, obviously, if you would like some photographic tips, some of you. Obviously, quite a few of you are taking photographs of them anyway. But just a few things to note. Not all digital cameras will photograph orbs. Generally speaking, the more sophisticated and new your camera is, the less likely it is that it will be able to capture orbs. I've asked a few professional wedding photographers before this talk if they had any good pictures of orbs, and most of them just looked at me blankly and went, "What are orbs?" So I'll take that as a no then. So it seems like the only area of mainstream science that I could discover looking into this phenomenon is the camera industry, and they seem to be producing professional cameras that are less sensitive to the infrared. So if you want to check whether your camera is suitable for taking pictures of orbs, there's a very simple test that you could do that involves a TV remote. I've got a remote here which is just for a DVD, and if my one, you just want to press it and show the audience that you can't see anything, but the camera will actually see it. I mean, it doesn't matter, you can just, if you can see the flushing. I mean, this is a very simple test that you can do at home, and you can do it with a mobile phone as well, just to check whether your phone will be able to take photographs of orbs. Always use a flash, and ideally on an automatic or fill-in setting. The reason that is so that on a fill-in, the flash will find the nearest object to light. And it'll actually give you a clue if orbs are around, because your camera will be going zzz, 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 especially, you know, if they're moving around. And when editing, just have a really close look at something. If you find a picture that's out of focus, like this one, have a close look at it, because it could be because the camera is focused on the orbs, which is there, and there's some really little tiny ones here, and everything else is out of focus, but the camera was looking at the orb. So if you're using a mobile, the best kind of mobile phone for orbs is one that's got a light on it. And as they don't really operate like flashes, these lights, you're probably best to use it on a movie setting. And that way you should be able to get some results. Be prepared to take lots of photographs, because you won't necessarily get any immediate results. And orbs always show up better against a dark background. So I hope that gives you a few tips, and obviously if you've got any other questions, me and Maya will hopefully answer them for you.
Okay, Jojo, can I have you, Jojo, as the running about person? First Richard, then Paul, then Nick, and then Dr. Dan. Start with Richard.
Me, you didn't say me, and I've been waiting right
Joe, to the front row, baby.
Anti-Irish Christmas.
Does this stuff work on wet process film? Or do you have to have special infrared film? And what kind of stopping down of the lens are you using?
Well, I use film. I mean, it's my preferred medium, and I've never been able to get orbs on film. However, I think it would definitely be worth a try on infrared film. Definitely. But I always use a flash. And so, as in sort of stopping down, you know, look for your flash settings. Usually you would have to for a sort of medium aperture. But yeah, worth a try on infrared film, definitely.
You've not tried anything with image intensifiers, infrared viewers, or ultraviolet viewers, ultraviolet flashes, or any other exotic kit?
Well, yeah, this is the thing, you don't really need any exotic kit. You need a cheap, compact digital camera. That's the best results you.
One of them, that's it. That's all you need.
You know,
Any old camera will do, honestly. Does anybody mind if I take it? That's all you've got to do. Maybe sit down.
How many pixels is it?
It doesn't seem to matter. Some of my pictures, sorry to interrupt you. Right.
So I was just going to say, the first camera I used was just 10.5 pixels on my camera, and then these are all 14.
Have orbs ever been captured on video? That is either moving video, or if you freeze a video image, can you see an orb?
I think there are lots of video footage of orbs actually. If you look online, you'll find lots of them. I mean, obviously I can't vouch for them, and there are a lot of sort of fake ones. I think some of the most interesting ones are ones captured on infrared CCTV cameras. I've seen. So yeah, you will find some.
YouTube.
We had a speaker here some years ago who said that he had seen orbs in fields, and some of them seemed to exercise almost a kind of proprietorial right over the field. They would kind of zoom in when he was present there. Most of them seemed very benevolent, but there was one that was quite malevolent in its approach. Is there any evidence, apart from the utterances of this speaker of long ago, that orbs have some kind of natural intelligence within them? That they are intelligent beings rather than whatever it is they are, if they're not intelligent beings?
I think they do display that actually, yeah. I mean, something about when I might have slightly skipped over it actually, when we were photographing them in churches. We'd get the feeling that we'd go in, we'd take a picture and then with an orb, and then the other pictures were just generally looking around. There wouldn't be an orb, and then we'd go up, down on the floor, beneath their feet, right above our heads. It was like hide and seek.
Yes.
So yes, I think they do display that, definitely.
Now, just one other point. You may have noticed while I was watching the photographs, sometimes I have one eye closed and sometimes I have the other. That's because I have a lazy eye. It's not because I was making salacious allusions. I was also interested in your mention of St Nectan's Glen. There's a local tradition that the quest for the Holy Grail started off from St Nectan's Glen. This has nothing whatsoever to do with the subject, but my book on the Holy Grail is on Thank you.
I would just like to sort of support what you said, the difference between compacts and DSLRs. I do have a compact, and since I moved from compact, I've not seen the orbs in my DSLR, and I just put it down to the fact that perhaps compacts having small CCD sensors as opposed to full 35mm CMOS sensor of a DSLR would be more prone to pick up the light refraction of dust particles or moisture particles in the air. But having seen your whole misty light wave thing, it's really put me in a different frame of mind. But on a lighter note, I actually have got two orbs at home, pet orbs. One's called Roy, and he's got a little boy, and that's Roy Orb's son, you know. Sorry! No, I'm not sorry.
Jackie, I'm not ignoring you, Dan, I'm just working my way up the hill.
Yeah, it's quite good I speak after that, because it's a similar related thing. Yeah, I wonder whether some of it, because some of the cheap cameras have just got automatic focus, we tend to use the automatic focus on them, and I know sometimes you said about the thing with the cameras trying to focus. I think, because me, Rich and various friends used to run a paranormal group, and we had this one shot that looked like the orb, and one of our guys, John Trainer, who's the guy who did the analysis on one of the latest Fortune Times journals, actually broke it down, and you could actually see it was an insect, and what I think had happened, the camera was sort of trying to focus. And I think this is problem why we have not a lot of good Bigfoot shots, because they sort of are trying to focus on the trees and they can't quite focus on the Bigfoot, and then we get this blurred image. So I encourage people to get camcorders, get a manual focus one. And Kieran O'Keefe actually said this to me. He says, well, we're not getting a lot of good shots of things because of this automatic focus on camcorders and other cameras. I do believe orb exist. I've got a lovely shot of one I took when I was at David Wells, actually coming right out of the wall and going back in. And in my house, row of 5 cottages were supposedly, unbeknown to me when I moved in, haunted by American GIs, and we do get some little orbs shooting around, and I've had some pretty impressive ones you can see with the eyes. So I do believe that there, but I think a lot of them, I do wonder, I think a lot of them looked amazingly like pollen particles. And I do wonder whether some of it is, somehow it's magnified by the lens pollen, especially the nucleus and some of the effects around them you get. But I think some of those are, you know, they're sort of, what do you call them, the light waves, some of those look, but I think there's, you know, different things cause, you know, similar effects. So I don't think it is just one thing, and I think the dust tends to have a sort of random movement. You know, some orbs move very quickly in a deliberate straight line, and they do stand out. So.
I don't think they always move in a straight line.
No, not always. But I've had ones that are almost sort of shooting past you, trying to get out.
They can, yeah, they can do. But
yeah.
I mean, have a close look on the. Dave's happy to have it might be worth looking at some of Maya's pictures close up, because I actually edited her pictures for this talk, and I tried to. I mean, it's very difficult because it's so light in here to select a series of pictures that shows that the light waves are actually formed by lots of orbs. I mean, it's just very hard to see.
I have a website.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
yeah.
Down. Up at the back.
Okay, the major flaw with all of this work really is you're using the camera with a single lens. So it's impossible to distinguish between a piece of dust really close in that's really highly illuminated by the flash, and you're using compact cameras, so the flash is right next to the lens. In an infrared night vision kit as well. Most of it, you've got an enormous great lens and an intensifier,
and an illuminator right next to the lens. So what I'd ask is, have you tried using twin lens cameras? So you've got two photos from more or less the same sort of viewpoint, and you can tell how far away the object is then.
Well,
Does somebody just bring in a friend at the top there?
Could you tell your story about the orbs you took by the tree?
oh yeah.
With your friend.
So, yeah.
I'll just share with everybody the story I shared with two ladies earlier. I was photographing a tree that had cat scratches on it with Danny Knight, of all people, several years ago. And we were in a wood, and we were standing about 5 feet from this oak tree. And I photographed the oak tree with my old 35mm camera. Danny photographed the oak tree with his new digital Canon camera. When I received my film back, I realised there was two orbs in the photograph. One was half hidden behind the oak tree, it was very large, and the other was a small orb in front of the oak tree. And I just happened to ring Danny and I said, "Hey Danny, you know that cat tree we photographed with claw marks on it? Have you happened to got orbs on your picture?" And he goes, "How do you know that?" Because strangely enough, I have. I said, "Can you send me over the image by email?" And he did. And lo and behold, it was exactly the same as the photograph that I had photographed. Both orbs were the same place, exactly the same size.
Thanks very much.
Yes, thank you. And I just wanted to say that actually me and Maya have tried to do some experimental photographs together. I mean, they didn't particularly work on the occasion that we were out, where I've been trying to have one camera's flashing, but the other camera not flashing. So you've got one light source, but two cameras seeing it from a different viewpoint. So we're working on that one.
And do you still get orbs? The same ones?
Well, as I say, the results weren't particularly successful, but we're working on it.
We only tried it for one session.
Yeah.
So, but you know, I would always say, you know, go out and give it a go. You know, have a look yourself. You know, because you know. Say my little bit about nobody has to believe me. Why should you believe me? But you can believe yourself. So you know when you go out and you take photographs and you know the circumstances and the air conditions and the heat and all the rest of it. You can and you just keep taking pictures and just see what happens. And after a while, you come to the conclusion that something different is manifesting, is happening. But, you know, don't believe us, give it a go, try yourself.
I'm quite confident that most and probably all orbs are dust. And if you wear glasses, depending on the angle of the light, you frequently see the skin under your eyes, your eyelids or your own eyelashes reflected in your glasses. I was on a train journey and due to the angle of the light, because it was behind me, I had a particularly good reflection in the right-hand side of the right lens of my glasses, of my eyelids and my eyelashes. And in my eyelashes was an orb in the reflection in front of me. And it had all the classic features that people describe for orbs. It had a distinct nucleus surrounded by a translucent area, and an onion-like effect of rings. And it was a fragment of dust on my eyelashes without any question of doubt, because I could control its movement. I was actually able, as I moved my eyelids, to move the orb. It's completely indistinguishable from all the orbs people capture in photographs. And I would say that it'd be interesting to try and capture this on film. I'm sure if somebody would work hard enough at it, they would be able to do it. A reflection of something you're seeing on your eye. I don't know how you would do that. I'm not going to try and find out. I don't really have the opportunity to get into orb research. But I think if you work hard enough with reflective surfaces close to your eye and experiment with the direction of light sources and such, I think people with glasses probably do see orbs all the time, because they're seeing fragments of dust and skin and whatever that's close to their eyes. I have fragments of dust on, I can see right now, and maybe if they were at a different distance from my eyes, I would perceive them as orbs like those in the photos. So I know that's an opinion that not everyone would agree with, but...
I agree with you, absolutely. And also, you can they are indistinguishable. And with, you know, you could take photographs of water droplets on something, and, you know, if it goes out of focus, because you're taking a picture of something closer in the foreground, it looks like there's zillions of orbs in the background, same thing. But it doesn't necessarily mean that other forms can't take that circular shape, because after all, the universe is full of roundness, you know, circles, things sort of draw into a that kind of shape. It seems a universal shape. But yeah, you just got to keep trying yourself until you satisfy your own curiosity about it, really.
Can I suggest, I know it's been very difficult to see the pictures that we've taken on today because it's so light in here, but can I suggest you just look at a couple, especially the ones that are positioned behind the washing line, and for some reason both me and Maya have taken pictures of orbs behind the washing line, and perhaps try and explain that one as dust.
Okay, next question. Silas. No, sorry, Steve Jones. I'm trying not to wear Joe's legs out by getting him running up and down. So.
Yeah, like Darren, I myself thought that the orbs were photographic blemishes, you know, water, stuff like that. Until I actually saw one when I was on a ghost investigation on a CCTV camera in a lighthouse. And what I saw through the camera, actually, it wasn't like this time. It started off as a very small, or similar to the one in the top right-hand corner in the photograph, but it increased in intensity to become such a bright white light and then shot off that there was a trail on my retina. Now, unfortunately, because I let out such a hell of a scream and said, bloody hell, what's that, or worse to that effect, I thought there was something with me. Unfortunately, it wasn't. Everyone ran in from the next room, and of course it had gone. Now, what I didn't know at the time was that where it appeared, and it was in the middle of a room. It's a town museum at Withensea, next to a particular object, which is reputed to be haunted. I didn't know that was one of the haunted rooms. We then went in and did the classic test to see what else it could have been. So we tried everything. We did actually, while everyone's looking, see a light that appeared in a small boat. But when we tested it and when we found out that it actually nothing like what I saw, and it was somebody with an EM meter with a light on it. So we tested it with various light intensities. So I still don't know what the hell I saw. It's really annoying when you do not believe in orbs and you've bloody seen one, and nobody else has spotted it as well.
Yeah.
Dan. By the way, for anybody who's thinking, God, we're overrunning, if you look on the programme, I completely messed up and put an extra half hour in, because I didn't know that. So we've got plenty of time, and if there's any time left over to make up, I'm going to add it to the 3 o'clock break so people can stop on the time to have lunch. So carry on as long as you guys like.
What you're seeing, basically, is a point source of light in front of a very wide aperture lens. Now, I've seen exactly the same thing in negative down a microscope, which is a wide aperture lens with a very, very narrow depth, very, very thin depth of field. And if you have a little bit of dust, say on the top of the condenser or the back of the slide or something, then, especially on something like a student microscope where the lenses aren't actually all that good, you see a round thing with quite a lot of structure in it. The structure is just the imperfections in the lens. That's what you're seeing. This is why you're not seeing it on a professional camera, because the lens quality is bigger and the lenses are actually larger, so is the sensor, plus the flash is further away. The CCTV camera that Steve Jones has there is probably going to be the cheap variety with a ring of infrared LEDs right around the lens. So if you get a little bit of dust floating in towards the lens, it's really, really strongly illuminated, and because the lens is a huge aperture and has a fairly shallow depth of field, you get this sort of strange structured circular thing.
Yeah.
If you have a different type of lens set up, say a mirror lens, you see a donut.
Well, I have actually managed to get orbs on a digital SLR. What I'm saying is that they're less likely to happen. But that, I don't think that's anything to do with the lens. I think that's more to do with the more sophisticated autofocus system that they have. That's my personal opinion.
Lisa.
Hi, I'm just redirecting the question that you put to me. Of the photographs, are there any of the orbs that you see with your naked eye and they've appeared on film? Because it's interesting what Darren has mentioned, because the 3 times I've seen them without the use of a camera, twice I was wearing glasses, and that thought did cross my mind whether it was something to do with the glasses that I was wearing. I was just wondering if any of the orbs you've actually seen naked eye without the use of cameras at all.
Well, I don't see exactly orbs as they appear in the photograph, but I do detect extremely fast movement. That's how I would sort of sense them. But
so you don't actually see anything, you sense it more than you
as in something very small, very fast, moving through my field of vision. And I do have floaters in my eyes, so I know, how they move, and they don't move very fast. But there will be the occasional whoosh. That's how I see it. I mean, I wouldn't even like to say I see them. They're more, as I say, it's more of a visual sense, sensing movement.
Yeah, when at the top end of my talk, when I was saying that they found me, in a sense, so I was seeing flashes of light at the edge of my vision. Usually it was purple. So as far as seeing in a dark room, if you rest your eyes long enough, you start to see everything moving anyway. But well, at least that's what seems to happen to me. But I just feel that it's something. It's an individual thing. It's a personal thing, and just try it and see what happens. If it doesn't work for you, if it's not what you floats your boat, that's fine. But if you do find things start to appear, like the light waves and things like that, it just opens your mind. It just makes life a bit more interesting. It's what this whole weekend's about, really. Not being, it doesn't all have to be facts all the time until you believe it. Maybe you can believe something and, it'll come to you. I don't know. It's just my personal opinion. Helen?
2 things. The perceiving orbs with the naked eye, when we're talking about being dark, this does sound like phosphenes, like artifacts from the retina. If you press your eye, you see sort of rosettes, patterns and things. The other one, the light waves, I kind of wonder if the camera is more sensitive to clouds of particulate matter that your eye can't perceive. I'm thinking of, you get wonderful light effects with, like God beams from clouds, where you get this sort of apparent sunburst. You apparently see light rays very clearly. It looks like that sort of effect.
Yeah, to be honest, the pictures up here, you can't really. It's just they're too washed out. Have a little look on there and just see what you make of it, or have a look on my website.
I just wonder if you're describing sentience to something. I've heard this sort of thing about ball lightning, but I think it's a very different thing. You're talking about large orbs which do apparently follow people, but I can't help feeling a lot of this is actually wishful thinking, perhaps.
Yeah.
I would love to believe they were kind of tiny orbs, but...
Well, that's fine, but just try it for yourself. Yeah, try it for yourself. I'm not trying to convince anybody, because why would you believe me?
Well, I was a complete sceptic until I took some photographs myself.
Yeah.
Also the watching line, maybe it's just the lighting in here, but that doesn't look as though it's behind. You would argue it's behind the washing line?
Yeah, it was. I know it's very...
It looks like in front from here.
Please have a look on the computer, because it's...
I just kind of feel that these are artifacts of some kind, not actual plasma blobs. Anyway, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, Joe, if you get the microphone, bring it back to Jackie.
Yeah, I've just got something on. In our paranormal group, I said we had a BBC production engineer, and we did one investigation artichoke in Cristo, and we weren't too sure whether the orb was in front of the camera, which it could have been dust, or behind. And John, I can't remember what package he used, but I think quite a few of the image modification packages, you've got this. He put a setting called X-ray, which makes it look like an X-ray, and you could then clearly see it was going behind the chair, not in front of the chair, which was a lot more convincing for us. So that's quite, if anybody can find that setting, it lets you very clearly see whether someone's going in front of or behind. And when it's behind, obviously it's not going to be, you know, an artefact from something in front of the lens. So.
There are two of orbs behind washing lines. They're very definitely behind, but you would need to see them on the computer, really.
Oh, Dick, you're going to have one more, Dan.
All right.
Dr. Holdsworth has the floor.
Have you ever tried wandering around at night with a night vision device?
Sorry?
Have you ever tried walking around, looking around at night with a night vision device? One that emits infrared?
No, I haven't, but I'd love to have a go.
Okay. I think it might illuminate what you think light waves are rather a lot. I think you find they occur quite a lot, especially right after you exhale.
I'll leave that to them.
Yes, yeah, obviously you can fabricate them easy. But I've taken a lot of pictures. I mean, this is just my experience. I've taken a lot of pictures, and I've gone to a great deal of trouble not to exhale. And in fact, last Wednesday, it was very warm, walking through the woods, and you know, it was just, you know, it'd be hard to actually. You know, having taken so many photographs and tried all sorts of things, because you know, you always try and sort of find disprove it if you can. I can't come up with an explanation for that. You know, for many of them. Well, for the ones that you've seen today, anyway, and the sort of the blue energy. You know, you might find that interesting. I don't know what you might think that was, hair on the lens, I expect, or something like that, because I've had that experience, so I've sort of eliminated these things. I've taken thousands and thousands of pictures, but, you know, it's, like I say, I'm not trying to convince anyone, it's just really sharing it with everyone and seeing whether it opens up anything for anyone.
Which is all we could ask for. I much prefer it when people come here and give their view of things and get everybody else to tell everybody else how they can test it. Just like in Judge's talk yesterday, rather than somebody, forgive me for sounding like an old hippie, round old hippie, rather than somebody coming and just laying their grip on somebody. The fact that what you've done, and I'm sorry I missed half the talk, but it is video, and I'm going to edit video, so I'll be able to see it then. And like Judge did yesterday, it was showing how you, if you're interested, can test the hypothesis and come to your own conclusions, which, when it comes down to it, is what science is all about. And I have no doubt that some, probably the majority of all the pictures of dust, are also fairly convinced that some aren't. What they are, I don't know. But a few years ago, I was in a terrible New Age UFO conference in Las Vegas, and this dreadful blonde lady of very advancing years, who had obviously had a rich husband who spent an awful lot on liposuction and plastic surgery, terrible, came up and said, "Hey John, you're just so cosmic, look at this," and showed me a picture of me, and you're surrounded by orbs. I said, "No dear, I've got dandruff." I met Sarah a year or so ago, and she wanted to know about the Weird Weekends. I said, "Hey, come on to Weird Weekends," this was last year's, and she and her partner turned up at the Weird Weekend cocktail party when I was in my cups. So I immediately said, "Hey, it's Fairy Girl, it's Orb Girl and Fairy Dude." And they've been all girl and fairy glued in my head ever since. And I'm really, really, really glad that you came along today. And I hope you come along to future, I hope you come along to future events. And I very much hope some people in the audience test your hypothesis and let me know what they come up with. Yes, no, right, wrong, black, white, yin, yang. It's finding out the truth that matters, not necessarily what the truth is. Thank you very much, Sarah.